Hey, we're on the internet.
Damn it, you always catch me off guard, even though you tell me it's coming. And it just never happens for me. But, yeah, hey, how's it going?
You know, it's going. Welcome to SonarFeed, episode 300.
Uh,
We're all pretty sure that we messed that up badly at some point and missed like 6 show numbers.
Oh.
We're just going with it. I blame Aaron because he's not here to defend himself.
Yeah.
But welcome to episode 300. THICC Jordan says, wash your hands. So tonight we'll be discussing basically exclusively the coronavirus.
And how the season's going to be canceled at any moment now.
We're not doing that. Let's not have that happen. That sounds unfortunate. But we are down here at the Berliner Pub in downtown Renton.
4th and Main.
Head of the curve and all that stuff. I am Tom Biro, a.k.a. Bougie Hooli on the Twitter.
Mickey Turner ESQ on the Twitters.
We're changing your handle to Late Turner ESQ. Like, that's your name from now on.
I can accept that in this particular case. I was quite late.
So we have a number of things that we could talk about tonight other than definitely inappropriate coronavirus jokes that don't seem to be ending. But I want to open the show by noting that we did hang our MLS Cup Championship banner behind Mickey. So if you're looked slightly above Mickey, that's pretty amazing. I skip a lot of the giveaways. I'm a big fan of like magnets and like those kinds of things. That was one that I saw it and I was like, must have on the way in the stadium. So that was pretty cool. So shout to Sounders to doing that, because I think, you know, marketing is challenging to get 20,000+ people in any given situation to think something's cool. And pretty much everybody I talked to that had the opportunity to grab one did. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah, that was very, very cool.
So we got a lot to talk about. We have some CCL things.
Yeah, do we really want to go into
I mean,
that?
we should at least talk about it. So we've got some CCL things. We have some match number 1 things for Sounders. We've got the rest of MLS Cup. We could talk about the fact that there have been too many Baby Yoda Tifo displays already. We can talk about Orlando's display, which is one of my favorite things that I've seen in a really long time from non-Sounders, because that was pretty hysterical. We could talk about Portland. I don't know what they were doing, but okay. It was cool, though, for them to give a shout-out to the bar that ECS hangs out at when we go down to Portland away. So that was neat. We talk about a little bit, some prep for this week, what's coming up. And then there's some things like Joseph Martinez and other news kind of around the league that we can dig into. So lots of stuff to talk about, which usually we have lots of stuff to talk about when we haven't done a show for 2 weeks. This has been like, I feel like we did a show 3 days ago and we've got a ton of things to dig into. I just touched my face, so I'm fired. Sorry.
Stay on your side of the table.
I'm sure that'll keep you safe over there.
Yes.
So it's really that Berliner, by the way, is giving us as much fruit as we possibly want, because that will definitely
so that's gonna happen.
Save us all from coronavirus. Anyway, so maybe let's just start it yesterday. I think there was a lot happening yesterday between some lineup adjustments, Miguel Ibarra, no Jordan to start the match. That I have to say, that's another one. Everybody loved Scarves Up yesterday. We're all like, oh, cool. True. Yeah. So good Scarves Up. Personal biases aside, one of the cooler displays from ECS that I've seen.
Very good. It got a good reception in the press box there.
Yeah,
duly impressed with the whole thing.
The scale of it was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed like getting on match day to do a couple things. Sometimes I've been on ropes, but I was trying to help people bring it down to the rail and kind of, strike at the end of it. And it's fascinating to see people, especially in like match number 1 of the season. There's 100 people in those sections who haven't been to Sounders or haven't been in that area before, or are not near GA, like, because this was 9 sections wide, who are like, what am I doing right now? And why is this thing covering my view of the field? So that was pretty awesome, but I think it was very well received. It all worked, which is another thing.
It's always the first one of the season, especially.
First one of the season, like new people on crew, new people in the section, some of the ropes don't want to work sometimes. Like there's always a thing, and something of that scale, it was really, really cool to see. So shouts to all the volunteers who'd come out over months, it feels like, to put that together. So that was pretty cool. Did you catch the stars? We did make another star, so now we have 2 floating stars.
I did not see that.
Yeah, they didn't roam any further than just the section.
Oh, that's disappointing.
So shout out to Larry Herrera, who may or may not be responsible for getting the star 9/10 of the way around the stadium later this season. I expect to see them make an appearance as often as possible. Yes. So that was pretty cool. A lot of stuff happened in pre-match. Obviously, banner raise, noon kick. Those kinds of things are hard. Just decent amount of people though in the stadium at kick.
It was pretty full. ECS section was totally full, or basically totally full. So that was nice. And then they tell people to get in your seat so you can see the presentation. So that, I'm sure that had a little bit to do with it. And then you have the national TV start times, which are never the listed times. I'm not sure exactly what time it kicked off. I wasn't paying attention, but it was 12:30.
25, 30, something like that.
Something along those lines.
I think we had gotten the heads up. It was around 12:25, 12:27 was supposed to be kick. I would say they're pretty militant about that nowadays.
About not announcing the specific time?
Yeah, but even about it not really changing when they, a lot of times when we have a display, we get a good sense, ECS gets a good sense of run a show. But you never know what's going to happen. Like, kids freak out. The national anthem starts late. Like, a million things can happen. Speaking of which, national anthem, we can talk about everybody's personal opinions about it. It was really good. So, but it was just the right amount of personalization. Like, this is my deal. But that was really cool. So I would say all in all for match number 1, things worked out, except for the coin toss, which can we not have this become a trend of Sounders attacking in the opposite directions of what they normally do?
Yeah, again, I don't know who won the toss and
or how it worked out.
Yeah, how it worked out.
But that's twice now.
Yes, it's probably my understanding, and I might be wrong, is that it's kind of similar to NFL where you get to choose to receive or kick the ball.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a deferral. And so presumably the team that has won the last 2 tosses has been the away team, at which point they have said, well, we know how the Sounders feel about going to the Brom end in the second half, so we're going to
it is definitively helpful to do.
Yes.
So,
and I'm sure they know that, and as such, they have decided not to allow the Sounders to do that if they have at all the choice. So I think it's probably just just a thing of they have lost the coin toss 2 times in a row.
Let's not do that.
So
not a fan.
We'll ask Smetcher about it and see if that's the case. But that's my understanding. I haven't heard anything that makes any other sense.
I am a fan of Captain Steph.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty fantastic. It's interesting to me because I think in times like CCL or non-league matches, friendlies, whatever, they do kind of mix it up sometimes. Or Steph has been captain, but the fact that it wasn't Christian or somebody else, because we've definitely seen that change. From CCL to match number 1 of MLS regular season, I thought that might alter, and obviously Nico not being there.
Yeah, he is the
but
clear
it was
default
interesting
number 1.
to me, and I'd be curious to see if at any point that were to ever change. I don't expect it to. But I'm wondering if, in matches where Ladero is unavailable due to injury or whatever, is it just going to be Steph now? Because that wasn't always the case in the past. There were other players that it did go to.
Well, just ask yourself, who else would it be at this point? If it's not Nico.
I mean, it could be rolled on.
I guess, but he's still pretty young relative to that. You do typically want it to be a field player so they can go talk to the referee.
It's kind of my take. I don't always love it for that exact reason, but he did kind of put the ball down and just run out to, 40 yards out onto the field.
Yeah, you don't want that. There's a good reason you don't want that happening, because if there's a quick restart, then you're screwed. But again, I don't think there's anybody necessarily else who they would want to have it at this point. Yeah, Roldan would be perfectly fine, but has he ever been captain in an MLS game?
Yeah, I think
When's
in
the
MLS
last time?
Was it last year?
Last season?
I feel like last year.
All right.
Yeah. That's where the Captain Christian thing came from. Too many people spelling his first name wrong on the internet.
well,
no one's ever been wrong on the internet. I
Yeah.
don't know what we're even talking about.
But I think Fry's just higher up on the
For sure.
pecking order, so I think that's just the way it's going to be. And when Nico is not available.
So maybe kind of digging in, from the press box view, and I saw you on the concourse a bit yesterday too.
Yeah, I ran down.
Anything pop out to you? Just kind of watching the gameplay from a different perspective of maybe some of us that were in ECS or elsewhere.
Well, I watched the replay or a replay when I got home because I thought they played poorly in the first half, and I kind of modified that to just pedestrian. Because I would say the first 20, 30 minutes they were the better team, and then something happened and Chicago was clearly on the front foot from minute 30 until they scored essentially. So through the first half, and the main things I saw is they were killing the Sounders on the wings, and just they had multiple shots. Obviously, they had a couple of goals called back from wing positions that started attacks, and so those again, through the first 47 minutes, that was my main takeaway, is that they were just having a field day and the Sounders weren't able to really cope. The goal they scored obviously was, Leardom, I guess, to some degree was at fault. He was a guy, he got beat at least, even though, you would say it was probably the center back should have done better at covering. But that was the main takeaway I saw from the first half and when Morris got in the game. And obviously that was not a great way for him to get introduced to the game, to give up a goal within 47 seconds. Not that he had anything to do with it, obviously. And then after that, it was just a case of they should, from these points forward, get the ball to Morris as often as possible. On the wings, obviously, you don't want him necessarily dribbling in the middle. But they didn't have any answer for him. Olympia didn't really have any answers for him either. And he's just, there was the Golden Boot / MVP conversation, and I think he is, Golden Boot might be a little tough, although maybe not, depending on.
The bar has changed.
Yeah, the bar has changed. We'll certainly talk about that later.
There's enough new players though in the league too
Sure.
that you never really know what you're going to get. But
but he's just not. He's almost impossible to play at this point, and so he's gonna be racking up a ton of goals and assists. He again should have had a couple of assists. One was taken back for a offsides, which was probably correctly called, maybe, and then the other one on the Ibarra miss, which is one of the
three.
Yeah, one of the three, and we'll certainly talk about Ibarra too. So, everyone was just basically talking about Morris, and just he does all of that inside of 45 minutes of play. Just incredible performance, and it's just picking up where he left off since basically the Gold Cup ended last year.
Yeah,
he's just been a top 5 player in the league, probably is fair to say, since he got back.
I would say that's a pretty accurate.
And probably moving up, since one player ahead of him will not be playing the rest of the year.
Stepped aside, unfortunately. I don't know if we can say enough about Joao Paulo.
Yeah.
He's didn't get another assist.
He got a secondary assist.
Secondary assist. But had scored in CCL. Game changing. And I think a combination of, he at the position that he's going to play, and Nico back out there is kind of scary. Although it's going to dramatically change once a number of these players are back. Once Goose is back, once he's back, you're going to see some slightly different lineups. Maybe not formation-wise, but like the players that are out there right now are not going to be getting quite as many minutes.
Well, and look at this way. To my understanding, Joao Paulo and Nico have played basically not at all in any type of formal or even informal game. It's been some training sessions.
Yeah.
Nico was in training on Friday, was media days, Friday and Saturday, but it was still he got through a decent amount, but it was not like 100% full in Nico running the training sessions. So they basically had no time together in a game situation. So,
but that's where you realize players of that quality can kind of just go out there and kill it. And like Nico, like remember that first match that he played in? Like
it was LA Galaxy. Yeah.
Just like even the ones that he missed connecting on, he put through a number of through balls and passes that you were just like, this is a different type of player on Sounders.
They've
like
not had that in quite some time.
But they're just that good, you know, where they look around, they're like, oh, well, I could do this. You know, it's just a really interesting thing. And that's where, you know, it goes from, oh, well, these are both quality players to, oh, now they learn the chemistry, you know, between each other. Like, not maybe that this isn't the right way to talk about Liverpool, but like their outside backs are switching the ball back and forth to one another at a rate that like doesn't happen. Like you just don't see 40-yard switches for fun on the run from outside backs. Like it's not a thing.
They're just another level of player.
But they've learned how to play together and like know how to, you know, send and receive the ball in a way that's just damning. Well, most weeks to other teams. So like that's the kind of thing that I'm hoping we get to start see from you know, these folks once they're back.
Hopefully at least next week
well, what's your expectation now between, I would say, Goose and Nico?
Well, it sounds like Svensson will be in training on Tuesday, full training, which is interesting because I thought that Nico was ahead of him. And my guess is that they're still going to take it a little slowly with Nico. So maybe if you get Svensson back, then you can pair him with João Paulo or put him back at the 10 for another week and try to get by that way.
So we start pushing some buttons once even just Goose is back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So who's not playing?
Who's not playing? Dellum. Well, let's assume that Morris starts and so Ibarra's and Roldan starts as well. So Ibarra's out. So you're looking at who you want to get rid of in the defensive midfield. And Dellum's been playing very well. He still has his main flaw is that he doesn't have the pass that can unlock, you know, can link up the defense to attack and bypass the attack. Although his diagonal passing is pretty good.
He looks so different from when he first came around. Not that that's too surprising, but I remember him being on the cusp of not being on the team for a while. Like you were like, okay, there's some promise.
Well, he was a red card waiting to happen.
All the time. And like his gameplay has dramatically changed since that point.
Yeah, he's close to MLS starter level, I think, at this point. Maybe not on a MLS Cup contender, but he would start for half the league at least. And it's good that they've got him in you know, as depth for the Sounders.
Well, and that's where, again, not that they have this massively full roster, but like that's the kind of player that come next expansion time or like whatever else is going on. Like,
fortunately, the Sounders are exempt from the next one because
he would be the kind of player that people would be chasing.
Oh yeah,
after.
he'd be a number one pick for an expansion team. He's cheap and good and has a bunch of good qualities. But so the short answer or the easy answer would be Dellum. And then so you slot Gustav and João Paulo next to each other. But again, if João Paulo if Nico's not there, then you know they probably move João Paulo again up to the 10. That's the easiest solution. Yeah. And then you got Svensson and Dellum that you can pair together. And that's I kind of like that pairing.
But that again, like not that I am happy if Ladero is not on the field, but like that is intriguing to me. Yeah. Although not that he wants to be playing it, but Goose at center back to me is still preferable to O'Neal. I have to tell you, the defenders yesterday, I don't know what was going on, but there were like 15-minute periods where they're like, oh, we're going to play it out of the back. And I'm like, no, not like that. Like you needed to open up play in very, very different ways. Now, the mids were being covered in a way where it wasn't quite as easy to just loft something out. But there was some dangerous, you know, back passing and whatnot. There was one drop back to Steph that I'm like, what are you doing? Like that was the worst decision ever. But there were a handful of those that they were getting pressured so hard and they did not seem like they were really able to get out of it as effectively as you would like them to.
I would say I would accept Arriaga from that because he was fantastic on the ball. Had some pretty ridiculous, turns and dribbles.
Him being good on the ball, though, doesn't necessarily mean that other people were able to receive or do things with the things he was outletting to them.
That's fair.
But I would agree.
And O'Neal, I thought, was okay. He had that one bad, dangerous play where he probably should have just kicked the ball out of bounds. It was fairly late. Kicked the ball out of bounds for a corner or a throw-in, and he got bodied off the ball. And
well, to his credit, was he not responsible for bringing that ball up that became the corner, that then became the goal, the winning goal? Was that him late because it was up on that side, right?
I think I know exactly what player you're talking about. Yeah, he cut out a pass from fairly deep. It was a great read, and then basically dribbled all the way
up.
Yeah, all the way up. Yeah, it was a great play. And so again, I think he was pretty good on the day. So again, the Sounders have another player who
and maybe
appears
it's just
to
a
be
chemistry thing again. Yeah. These aren't necessarily going to be the pairings you're going to see forever.
No.
And it just looks a little bit different at certain points.
Yeah.
It was just interesting to see who the subs were yesterday and how it changed the dynamicness of the offense especially.
Yeah.
And by the way, Nuhu just came out there and was like, "Let's go! It's time."
That's typical Nuhu.
Typical Nuhu. But it's like that at minute 0, or
Yeah.
minute 82. Like it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. It was interesting that he didn't start at left back. I assume that was just because they're just trying to make sure that they manage his fitness, because Jones played the Olympia game too, so it's not like he was fully rested and Nuhu wasn't. I just thought that was interesting. Probably should have asked Schmetzer what his kind of thinking was on that, but that just means he's rested and likely to go against Columbus. And yeah, I thought Jones was okay as well.
Yeah.
He was pretty dynamic. Yeah, I guess the complaint that most people have is that he just kind of dithers on the ball and doesn't really use his skill to go forward as much as he. And you could see it in this game where he had a number of moves where he just torched his marker and had just a free roll down the line, and a couple times he sent in service, sometimes he passed it back, and so you get why the fan base gets annoyed. I'm sure the Sounders get annoyed with that as well. But yeah, he was good. And again, rewatching the game, it wasn't as bad a first half as I thought it was, except for again from like minute 30 to minute 46 when they were clearly not in the game at that point.
It felt to me like there was just chunks of minutes where like they just were not clicking, and I don't know if I could explain it. It's not necessarily. It could just be like
I think
this
it's
isn't
just
the
early,
lineup.
yeah.
This isn't your best 11, best 12, best 13.
Yeah, I'd say those are the two things early in the season. Not a complete lineup,
right?
And
it's game
probably
3,
just and also a little bit of just not playing up to their standard. And so that kind of combined for what was very pedestrian first half of the game.
So Hope asks how we felt about Danny Leyva.
He had trouble getting to the game. He didn't do anything wrong. I mean, he had one bad pass which led to kind of a half chance.
Yeah.
But aside from that, he just couldn't get the game. Again, he wasn't making any errors per se, but his passes were just kind of recycling possession. He passed it back, passed it sideways, a short pass forward. So everything was within like a 20-yard radius, if that makes sense. His passing and his movement, and so.
Do you think that's a chemistry problem, or do you think that's just yesterday was weird? I mean, honestly, a lot of us at halftime we were talking about it. We were like, can't really get a handle on this match. Like, you don't have a sense for anything really. Like, it just happened to be gameplay.
Yeah.
And like there are times where you're out there and you're like, wow, because there were stretches yesterday. I remember I looked up, and the possession wasn't great, but the corners the corner stats were very much in Sounders' favor. They ended up very much being even once we got to the end of the match. It just
a lot of it had to do with
clunky.
Yeah,
is maybe the best word I'd use for it.
The one stat I saw was that the duels won. The Sounders did not win that in the first half. It was like 60-40 duels won to Chicago, which that's a lot of possessions lost. You got 50-50 balls and you're not winning them. You're giving possession to the other side, and sometimes in dangerous positions, and that's just kind of again that also is what you can attribute the mediocre first half to. That very much evened out in the second half. I think the duels won basically was 50-50. So that tells you that they had a much better second half in that area. And Spencer said after the press conference, or at the game, he basically said, we had to talk with them. We kind of changed how we did things. Obviously, Morris coming in, he has a pretty good defensive work rate. He gets after it as well.
Well, and that a just as much we need Jordan Morris in the game as it was Danny Levis not having his best match.
I think because he wasn't having his best match, Spencer decided that Morris needed to go into.
Yeah,
we're making that move. They surmise. Yeah, because I don't think he wanted him at the 45th minute. That's not a sub you almost ever make unless it's an injury or tactical / poor performance. So they, again, Leva wasn't terrible, but he just had trouble. He didn't really exert any influence on the game. He's got a great long pass, diagonal pass. He can, really unlock things, and he didn't do any of that. Again, not necessarily his fault. It was just, the Sounders' poor first half, was amplified, and therefore he just wasn't able to exert any influence.
John throws out felt like the midfield was overrun a little bit. Would you lean that way? I don't know if I'd go that far.
No,
to me, it
wasn't
just felt
overrun.
like it wasn't clicking.
Especially because most of their attacks, in fact, I think all of their attacks essentially came from the wings, from the wide areas. Now, they were able to spring those based on winning balls, hence the kind of lopsided duels won. But I wouldn't put it up to the midfield being overrun. It's not like Chicago had a ton of shots on goal. They had a couple of dangerous chances, some of which were called back. But I wouldn't necessarily say the midfield was overrun. It didn't seem like I don't have the possession stats in front of me for the first half, but it wasn't wildly. Yeah, it was the Sounders lost it, but by a marginal amount.
But we've seen though it doesn't matter.
And
there have been matches where it's like 42 and Sounders win 3-0. Mm-hmm. So whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a tricky stat. There are teams where it definitely really, really matters. Sounders are not, I think, consistently
a possession team.
Yeah, they definitely
used to be. That changed, and it may change back this year when you got João Paulo and Nico on the ball. And I think I said this last year. A lot of that lack of possession was because they didn't have a number 6 who could really run and destroy and break up plays, and they probably still don't have that at this point, even when they get the full lineup in. Because if you have Gustav and João Paulo, they've got high work rate, and they'll be able to, but they can't necessarily. They don't cover a ton of ground like Ozzy used to. But they're smart and veteran players, so they'll reading the game is going to be that'll overcome that minor, and I stress minor, deficiency. And so, I wouldn't be too worried about it. But again, when you get João Paulo and Nico on the same field, that I would suggest that you're likely to see, maybe they're not going to be winning 55% possession, but 50-50 is just as good if you've got that kind of dynamic play
one other
elsewhere.
Thing to jump on, you had mentioned Jordan's kind of defensive work rate. Person next to me in the section last night was like, why is Jordan in the 18? He's defensively in his own 18. Oh. And I was like, well, that's, he's doing his Obafemi Martins impression back on defense. But it is true, and I think that is a thing we don't necessarily talk a lot about. Also, we've had a mixed, healthy Jordan Morris over the years. And I think as we've seen this year with his throughput, if that's going to be part of his game, he becomes even more of a valuable player over the long term.
Yeah, and I think they're just now that they're out of Champions League, and I guess we'll talk about that.
Will we?
Yeah. Well, we'll refer to it. I'll refer to it just in the context of this comment. That's gonna. They do not have the competition anymore, so his load management is going to be. They'll be able to kind of rest him as needed, as opposed to.
We're not talking about Campeones Cup.
We'll
Please
get to that when it gets here in August.
We can talk about Sound Transit being happy that the distraction is now out of the way.
Yeah, that was
cool.
It's a weird flex.
Delete your account. Anyway, Mike asks how long until are we calling him JP? Is that a thing? But are we actually calling him that? Or is that just a thing people are doing. I'm confused. Anyway, how long till Joao becomes more fouled than Ladero? Ladero is fouled.
He was the most fouled
into
player. Yes.
infinity.
Yeah.
That's a good question because he's already like, again, it's one MLS match and a couple of CCL matches, and he's only subbed out in one, right? He subbed out the first one.
Yes.
He scored that match, right?
Yeah,
so
he subbed
played
out
a
the first
lot
match.
of minutes already.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Don't know if I have a good answer on that. I think Ladero's still dynamic enough that that's going to be where you put in your tactical fouls when you need to.
Although apparently yesterday those don't result in yellow cards.
Well, it depends. So like if you do the same thing that someone else didn't get a card for, you get a card, even if it's not retaliation. So that's the thing. But whatever.
Yeah, that
It
was a very poorly ref game.
Not great.
Very poorly ref game. I don't know if I've ever seen that referee before. I think he's pretty new.
It was his
Yikes. I mean, because again,
no one could tell that was that. Actually, the first MLS match.
Yeah.
First MLS match. Thanks, Hope.
Well, it's so
you're our official statistician. It's on brand for you.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense in that it looked like he missed some fundamental rules of the game.
Like I don't know.
Like grabbing
shoving people and throwing them on the ground. Yeah. I don't know.
Or grabbing someone to break up an attacking opportunity is typically a yellow card.
Kicking other people.
Yeah.
On purpose.
And so
Not
that
a
was
foul.
Yeah. It was a very poorly ref game. So I'm expecting they'll send him back to referee school at some point. But
we're gonna not answer that on the air.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're gonna answer that on the air. Yes. There's Alan. They could send that ref to. Oh, they are already in CONCACAF. I want that ref to go call like a Liga MX game.
Is that like the punishment? Like sending him to
not
Siberia?
Punishment, that's fun.
Yes.
Like, just go see what happens if you're down there. And they're like, oh, the ref's not going to call any of this? Cool.
Yeah.
Let's go. Mark Geiger ref school. Nicholas says that, this was his first ever game at any level. Which, that's probably accurate. Yeah. Who knows? We had a really good ref at my rec league match last week. I would actually say that they called a better game than that ref last night, and it wasn't close. And they were by themselves.
I mean, the AR, or as is pointed out by Nicholas, AR ref was calling offsides correctly. His.
I mean, it is their job.
Well, I mean, that's impressive. Those are pretty. They missed the Morris one, but that was
a give back.
Yeah.
There were a number of balls that should have been ours that went out on.
So funny talking about this. Listening to some soccer sports talk radio stuff from over in Europe. They're actually the rules committee. So there's like FIFA, and then there's the folks that manage the laws of the game are talking about some of the things that they're going to review in the off season, whatever that is. I'm like, is that the European off season? Like, probably. But they're actually talking about dramatically changing offside and it being a lot more like daylight.
Oh, yes, I did see that.
Your toenail got past someone, which is interesting because that's like a fundamental, like dramatic change. And I know like it's almost like technology has gotten us too far and now they're going to ratchet it back, but maybe ratchet it back to a point where we haven't seen in like modern times, honestly. That and then what the word handball means is going to be a big play.
Yeah, I don't even know what the rule is at this point anymore.
You have no idea like what they're going to call. And I would say even just playing in a rec league, like every ref is calling it differently. And part of that I believe is influence because they're seeing it called differently at other levels. I'm like, that was clearly intentional. Like there was I think it was an EPL match last week where a defender, it's like your brain just like clicked and like made them do it. They made a really good save. And then realized that they had made a really good save and they weren't wearing gloves. And it was not great. But like, again, there's the blatant stuff that's really, really obvious. But I would say even the delineation between intentionalness or like a ball hits someone else and then bounced off you and you had no ability to stop it from happening, it just seems like they're making it up at this point. So like those two things are apparently going to have like big overhauls in the offseason. And frankly, VAR is probably the impetus for that, because there are teams that, like look at EPL stats and like they're tracking the VAR stuff, like overturns and whatnot. It's dramatic for a handful of teams, like what they've lost on and what they've won on. So it'll be really interesting to see how that changes.
I agree.
Thanks.
That's all I had to say.
You're like, okay.
Yeah.
So anything else from yesterday? Any other takeaways other than Stephen Fry's amazing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things you just want them to get healthy so you can see what the full power of the team is like. And that didn't you saw it last year in the first 5 games, and they basically blew everybody out of the water. And then they weren't healthy again until the playoffs, essentially. And
let's not do that.
Yeah,
that sounds exhausting.
It was very exhausting. And obviously some of that had to do with international absences as well. But it was just, you got a taste of it, and then it got taken away from you, and you got it at the end, which was great. But you saw how that affected the middle of their season, and they were out of the Supporters' Shield running. Now they probably weren't going to win the Supporters' Shield anyway, because LAFC won it by what, like 28 points. 30 points, so
with like a 70 goal differential.
Yeah,
or
so
something.
it's not like, but for Nico or Raul or Victor being healthy, they would have picked up all those points. That's unrealistic. But it's still, it makes it a grind of a season for the players and the coaches and the fans, and you would like to see them compete at a Supporters' Shield level this year through the course of the year. Because obviously it's more enjoyable when you're winning more games than you're not. And now, again, without that one competition to worry about, you should be able to put your full weight towards the regular season. And it should, again, knock on wood, assuming they're healthy, you'd expect them to at this point. They just need to get their best player back, and make sure that everyone is fit for the rest of the year. And it sounds like, Gustav will be available next week. Hopefully Nico will be available in the next 2 weeks. And then you can go from there. I'm not sure when the Sounders have their first bye. And I think it's coming up soon.
It's coming up soon.
Yeah.
We have this weird, like, well, it's
we don't
for this random week, and then we don't play this other random week.
Again,
but there's a couple of them really, really early.
Yeah, it's CCL induced, which, again, now they just have that time off. So we'll see.
At this point, that's good.
Yeah,
I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's after this week, now they're kind of just on a regular schedule, basically until June, when
Open Cup.
Yeah, Open Cup. But again, they're going to lose some players to international duty, so this is a good time to start racking up points.
Speaking of Supporters' Shield, Minnesota United are the current Supporters' Shield leaders. Go figure.
Yeah. At the expense of our friends to the south.
I'm super okay with that.
Yeah.
So.
We watched that game at the at Fuel afterwards, and again, I'm not particularly high on Portland generally, or for this season, just because I don't think that they're going to be.
What about
that good.
skinny Diego Valeri though?
Yeah, I heard someone talk about that.
That was me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was you. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, good for him if he's keeping the weight off to, be more fit. But I don't know. He's the least of their problems.
He very much is.
Yes, their defense is just not very good, and they got torched by.
We did talk about
Minnesota.
how now there are twice as many Charas to get red cards.
Yeah.
And by reds, we mean accumulated yellows.
Yeah, Charas are off to a good start. The Elder with the yellow card yesterday. But, yeah, they're...
We did say, what was the over-under on reds? Was it 1? I think it was 1.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
That should be a stat. You can bet on everything now, so, like, that should just be a thing in Vegas.
Right.
Like, what are the odds on Charas getting a card? They're pretty high.
Oh, I'd say it's very high.
Matt Oak probably does know, actually. By the way, great to see Matt Oak in the section yesterday. I was like, did you fly here and then just go home? I'm impressed. Like, if he went home last night on a red eye, that's amazing.
Or that was the plan.
Well, again, that was the plan. Thanks, Carrie. Anywho, John points are the biggest babies.
Just generally speaking, or
I think they actually dress as
It's just-
babies
it's-
the
yeah,
most.
man.
Like, as fans go, if you were to, like, go through and see what their kink was, EPL fans,
We don't kink shame on
that's what I'm just pointing out, that their kink is they dress up as babies. You can go to the Atlantic Crossing on Sunday morning and find out if that's an accurate statement or not. So we're going to move on
Yes.
to something else. Maybe let's talk about the weekend. There were some cool things on cool and annoying things on the TIFO front as the league goes. But maybe the big headline, I would say the league's big headline is Joseph Martinez.
100%.
It looked like what it ended up being when he was being walked off. You kind of knew. Yeah, but that happened, yesterday afternoon? We found out finally what it was.
What it was, yeah. The game was Saturday, obviously. I was watching the game, and I saw him go down. It was essentially a non-contact injury. I think there was like some odd contact with whoever was defending him, but the defender didn't kick him or foul him or anything like that. It was just kind of like a light touch, and he just came down weird on his right knee. And it's one of those things you just know immediately it's an ACL because it's essentially a non-contact injury, and he didn't even try to put any pressure on it. It's just one of those things where you grab it, you take like an awkward step with your still functioning leg, and then go immediately down. And just insane that they even let him back in the game.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable. Not that he did any more damage necessarily, but just.
But that's an injury, though,
it's
that's
crazy.
a really
It's
weird
crazy.
one. Like, you can walk.
Yeah.
I've seen this with NFL players.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, we got back out there. And then I tried to cut to the right, and
Yeah.
I just fell over.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, Will Broom was walking around with no brace or anything. What?
I was just going to make a joke.
Oh, Will Broom, before he had his surgery in the offseason, or last summer, he was walking around like a couple of days before, just with no brace or anything. You can do that obviously fine. It's just when you try to move laterally,
But
you
I
have
mean,
a problem.
we talked about this a little bit yesterday afternoon, evening, like devastating for them.
Yeah.
And it's funny because today they're like, what are the transfer rumors? They're going to go get Sturridge. And I'm like, are they? Like, I don't know what capacity they have to go anywhere near any
High price.
significant player.
Yes. Okay. So they have 3 DPs, obviously, Pitty, Barco, and Joseph Martinez. You cannot. They'll likely put him on the season-ending list, although maybe they won't. The Sounders never put Jordan on the season-ending list after his ACL, and he was close to coming back. If they had advanced into the next round, he probably would have played in a cameo way. And his injury and Joseph's injury happened within weeks of each other because Jordan obviously injured himself in the first CCL game. It's 2018? Am I getting that? Yeah, 2018.
18.
Yeah, 2018. And so Joseph was a couple of
like
weeks.
so long ago.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Joseph was a couple of weeks later. So, in theory, if his rehab goes, surgery goes well, rehab goes well, he could. I mean, it is not unheard of to be back in 6 months.
Right.
That said, that is extremely unlikely to happen. And I would point out that Morris's hopeful return that year was aided by the fact that the MLS playoffs were going in through December. This time they'll be done in November.
Right, quick turn.
Early,
yeah.
and so
November
that extra
7th.
Yeah.
So
That seems an impossible timeline, and unless Atlanta is going to MLS Cup, essentially, there's no reason to risk him coming back this year.
Let's not have that happen.
Yeah, it's a crazy suggestion, but I suppose in the chance that they are able to come and make MLS Cup, maybe that happens. But the other immediate problem for them is that they have no strikers at the moment. They picked up, Adam John, who is MLS replacement level at best. He flamed out with San Jose.
San Jose, yeah.
Flamed out with them. I think maybe he played with Columbus too to start. Maybe either way, he tore it up in USL, which is great. He certainly is an MLS replacement level player, but again, he's
But
not.
Do you think they can make a trade and do something different? Like,
I'm sure they have some TAM and cap space. They just can't get a DP. They cannot get a $2 million, $3 million DP. So I think they traded Nagby and got a boatload of allocation. They sold Gonzalez Perez, got a boatload of allocation. So they could certainly go out and get a TAM striker. It's just not going to be anybody who's likely on the level of Joseph. Maybe they scout somebody and they strike gold with a TAM player. That's happened before.
there was that guy that was not a striker that went to Newcastle who's not good at Newcastle that they could.
They definitely cannot get.
No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's going to be a dramatic change for the East.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one
I didn't think
it's a situation where you look at that happening, and even though I have no love lost for the East, like this happens, and the weighting and frankly the whole league changes because instead of certain teams just beating the crap out of each other repeatedly, if anybody starts getting walked on, that benefits everybody else in the entire division. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, again, the East is down right now. You've got the Red Bulls who basically sold everybody off and didn't sign anybody. They were going a full youth movement, and maybe it pans out, but you can't rely on
That's first place.
Yes.
Red Bulls.
Yeah, who did they beat?
I don't even remember.
It's Cincinnati.
Oh yeah,
the biggest tire fire in the league.
Cincinnati. Oh yeah.
So you've got the Red Bulls who sold off everybody essentially. You got Cincinnati who is just a mess organizationally. You got the Fire who are rebranding, have been a mess. You got I'm just looking at Inter Miami expansion team. You've got Orlando City has never won anything, and again organizationally a mess. Montreal kind of middling, new coach, got rid of their best player, and now you have Atlanta who's lost their best player. Toronto lost Michael Bradley. Whatever you think of how good he is these days, he is still an impact player. And so you've got like 4 teams. And DC lost Areola for the year, although they made some good signings, so they'll probably be a little better. New England should be a little better as well. But New York City, they're probably the best team right now, and they've got a lot of depth, and they play in that terrible stadium, which is an advantage for them.
Yeah.
But look at that conference is just nothing but flawed teams. And you look at the West, and you've got the Sounders once they get healthy. They're no major flaws. You got LAFC, no major flaws. So you got 2 teams right there. They're going to beat up on each other. And then the rest of the conference is pretty solid. In Minnesota, it looks pretty good. And so the East is going to be terrible relative to the West, most likely. And so if one team can emerge, maybe they can win the Supporters' Shield. But it seems like one of those years where was it 2014 when the Sounders and the Galaxy fought it out for Supporters' Shield. And so it seems like it could be one of those years where you get Sounders and LAFC fighting it out around 65 points. And then the next closest team is maybe a team in the East with like 53 or 54. And then you've got a bunch of teams in the West kind of around that area too. So I don't know. That's just kind of how I see it. I mean, that's just a massive loss. And again, they lost a lot of players besides. So it's not like I was
the Gressel thing still like I guess I understand it, but I don't know. That sucks. He goes to DC. Like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
That's like what? I don't know. You pick a homegrown on Sounders and send them to maybe not a direct rival, like a day-to-day rival,
maybe
but like send them to San Jose. Like, I want no part of that. And that's what happened there. Will he ever be Christian Roldan? I don't know. But if Christian Roldan was just let go to San Jose, like that's what that would feel like.
Yeah, and I forgot about the Gressel trade too. So they've got in those 3, Nagby, Gonzalez Perez, and Gressel. That's like $2.5 million worth of TAM or GAM or whatever they call it. That's going to get you a very good player.
Question mark AM.
Yeah. Yes, correct. But it's just a question. You're not going to be able to spend $8 million on a transfer fee and go grab someone. So yeah, for them it's going to be tough, and they're probably looking. I mean, they still got good players. DeBoer is maybe a good coach in this league. That's still kind of a question mark.
TBD.
Yeah, but again, they still have enough talent, and they'll finish probably in the top 4. That'd be my my guess, if they can find a TAM replacement. If they go with Adam John for this the entire season, then maybe they struggle to make the playoffs. Again, the East is so terrible. It's just hard to imagine.
So while we're talking about the East, Orlando City supporters did a Wolf of Wall Street display yesterday.
Interesting.
And the message was owners 2,
yes.
coaches 3, seasons 5, players 129, I think it is, losses 77.
That is brutal.
And then the payoff was, we're not effing leaving.
Wow.
Which was outstanding.
Yeah.
I have no love for that team or its supporters at all, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's amazing, actually. And, yeah, again, they, for as much a big a fan base as they had at the beginning.
Yeah.
And they were averaging, 33,000, and then they built their new stadium.
They built their own stadium.
Yeah, and it dropped down a little bit, so, not saying that's bad or anything like that.
I mean, but at the end of the day, Orlando's in a different place where the level of stuff to do is very, very different than a lot of other places. But again, they had habitually been good and had, their derby matches versus Tampa and
in USL level
outside of MLS.
It's one of those things.
That's like you threw a pretty big dart.
Yeah.
There. And it's funny. This is where we can make fun of Sheba for her tweet that has since been deleted about needing to submit your TIFO displays to the front office before they get up there. Did that get submitted to the Orlando City? I'm gonna guess they saw maybe everything else except the payoff.
Yeah,
because I can't see effing leaving being a message that was approved.
They may get called into the principal's office for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just a team. They have the fan base. They have the money-ish.
Yeah.
And they should not have been as bad as they've been over these past 5 years, never making the playoffs. They got Kaku, which understandably was a kind of a marketing signing over a necessarily pure on the field thing, and that's fine. MLS teams need to do that. I'm not going to throw any shade at a team for doing that, but they haven't really spent on a high price DP since, and they've been terrible since. And the fan, it's usually that place looks empty by September because the casuals and some of the hardcores decide they've had enough of this, and it's again, that's pretty impressive show for as bad as they've been, and the TIFO's great. So they hired a good coach. Pereira's a good coach. Their problem is that they
knows how to work a youth
system
situation. Yeah.
The problem is they're still building up that youth, and Dwyer is still there, and that speaks to the other problem is that they spent a ton of their budget and cap space going all in 2 years ago when they got Dwyer and Kleshchen and a couple of other guys. Some of that's finally coming off the books, but I think this is basically the last year where they're still hamstrung by those contracts and deals that they gave out. So this year is probably going to be a bit of a struggle for them, but they still, they got to make the playoffs. And then next year they can start to kind of retool their roster, get rid of guys like Dwyer, who, obviously was a bad deal when they signed him, and he just hasn't been able to perform. He was kind of a middling, slightly above average MLS player, but they paid like a DP or just under a DP.
Yeah. Anything else from the league that jumps out at you from this weekend scores?
The one thing, or a couple of things, definitely the LA Galaxy Houston game. Chicharito did absolutely nothing, which, we didn't do any predictions or anything like that. But I'm not going to say he's going to be terrible or anything like that, but I don't think he's going to do nearly what they expect.
Yeah.
To be fair,
at this point already, Zlatan had made his mark on the league.
Yeah. And again, Zlatan's a better player than Chicharito, and I don't think anybody anybody was ever claiming otherwise. So it's not like if oh well, Zlatan left, so we signed a replacement. No, you didn't sign a replacement. You signed a good player, but he was never going to get 30 goals. I know Sebastian Salazar put the requirement for him to be successful at 30 goals, which is it's insane. It's not. He's
it's
not
ridiculous.
It's not something that's going to happen unless
not on that team.
Yeah, and they've got some good other players. I mean, maybe he gets 8 penalties that he gets to take.
Well, sure, but if they're going to have a sieve defense, like they have in recent years, that is going to take goals out of his expectations ultimately.
So he didn't really do anything, but again, that's the first game, so to be a bit fair, it's not like you can expect him to come out with a hat trick.
Kind of moving on from there, unless you have more LA Galaxy talk.
No.
Bregel asks about how many weeks before a team draws more than the 59,000 at Nashville. I mean, Atlanta is going to go in that direction.
They'll do that at some point.
But big show, considering, and I remember we talked about it, they had sold 5,000 season tickets at one point, and we were all like, and 3 weeks ago, we were like, are they going to take the team away at the end of March? And the fact that happened, good for them.
So I talked to one of the reporters out there for a podcast, and right as the announcement of the 5,000.
There are other podcasts?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I don't know why people would want to listen to those. But I talked to him right when the announcement came out that they had only sold 5,000 season tickets. And first of all, he said that the number is a little bit low, but not much. Okay. And secondly, he said that Nashville is a kind of wait-and-see type of town. The same thing happened with the Nashville Predators.
Has he been to Seattle?
No.
Yeah, because it's the same. Yeah. We're like, I'll RSVP to your party on my way to your party. No, I mean, that's a good stat.
Yeah, and so the Predators, the hockey team, had trouble getting traction right away, and now they're
they do really well.
Yeah, they're the hottest ticket in town, and so he thought that the same thing was going to happen with Nashville, and I think a couple of things happened to kind of boost the attendance and maybe make this thing a slight surprise over what we thought it was going to be. I'll take one more. First of all, again, the fact that they're kind of a late arrivers, and secondly, the controversy over the stadium and the mayor refusing to sign off on it. I think people just got pissed off at the mayor because this is a deal that had been signed off on 2 years ago and ratified twice more, and people were like, "Well, what the hell?" And I'll come to this in a second, and so I think people are just like, "What the hell?" This is a deal. We want to see the team. So people started just kind of rallying around the team, and that I think, substantially increased the ticket sales for the game. And then I forgot what the other thing was, but just I think those kind of things, have an impact. There's a certain amount of civic pride that goes into supporting a team, and they probably heard the bad press about the lack of interest, and they were taking a beating in the press generally from from observers just saying, well, maybe they don't deserve a team. And then the fact that, again, there was almost no chance that the team was going to go away this year. In fact, there was no chance. It's not happening. But, MLS put out a pretty strongly worded, that's a strong statement to say we would not have been here without the stadium deal. I mean, that's kind of a gut punch. And that probably left people to say, okay, well, maybe we need to get, supporting this. And then they finally got the deal done, and the mayor, by hook or by crook, got a better deal for them. And so I think, and that provided...
the economic hammer got dropped on them.
Yeah.
I don't think people grasp. You have a stadium where obviously there's an NFL team that plays, its regular season games plus a couple preseason. They have concerts and there's some other things that happen. It's pretty close to town. It's walkable from the core. It's really easy. And you just added 17 plus more, 20 to 50,000 seat nights to that. The economic loss or the, opportunity loss there is really, really massive. Yeah. So I think, in a town that's, again, like Orlando, there's other stuff to do there, It's like, do I want to go this way or the other way? I think maybe that uncertainty definitely kept people on the ledge. Did you get a sense of it mattering whether the team is good or not? Like having an impact on whether people are going to want to come out?
Not really. I think they've set expectations. I think they have 2 DP slots open right now, and so if you're not filling those, then that kind of gives you an idea.
I mean, if the Sounders can take one of those DP slots, like if that's a league thing we could just make up right now,
I'll check on the
super
CBA.
okay with that. That's not a thing.
Yeah, it's not a thing. But so I don't think if they're competitive, that's the most important thing. And again, in the Eastern Conference, maybe they can slide into the 7th spot. They're missing a forward who can score, but again, that's not any different than Atlanta now.
Right.
So if they can pick one of those up in the summer, maybe they can compete.
They just draw their way through the rest of the season.
Yeah.
It's okay. No, it's not.
Yeah.
I'm very much interested in seeing what that's like when Sounders are out there in a couple of weeks. I know there's a bunch of folks going. It should be pretty exciting. That's a city I'm like happy got a team. Like there are others where I'm like I could take it or leave it. But that's one that I think is going to be fun.
Yeah, and we'll see how what the attendance is like now that they don't have Atlanta. To be fair, did travel a lot of people to that game. Maybe not the 3.4 million that they were claiming, but there was certainly I
think they traveled
a certain
10,000% more than LAFC sent to CCL.
Yeah. The math checks out.
It's actually not that far, like as drives.
Oh, well, Atlanta to Nashville?
Yeah.
Oh, not far at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a doable drive for sure. And so I will be
John
interested.
heard it was 650 million.
Yeah, that's might be
Isn't
slight
that how many
overstatement.
people Joe Biden said were killed in gun violence in recent years? I think that's about the number.
I'm staying away from that.
What? We're not having political discussion? Have you been to SonarFeed?
So again, I'll be interested to see how the attendance now pans out going forward. If this was just kind of a
Week
one-off,
one,
week one, first NFL or MLS team, that attendance is always great. And then if it drops down to 14,000, then maybe you start to say, uh-oh. But if they settle in around 25, 26,000, then you got to say that's an absolute success, especially given where they were.
Yeah.
A month ago.
Yeah. Well, maybe let's take a total turn from this. Talking about ticket sales and things, saw a number of people pissy on the internet today about the She Believes and how Orlando has sold like 12,000 tickets.
Yeah, and the other places are sellouts pretty much.
Like
that's
Red
weird.
Bull Arena, they expect to get pretty close to selling
They're at 22 now, so that's
what was the
fantastic.
Other? Is it DC? No. I can't remember the other.
Is it in Texas somewhere? One of the Texas?
Maybe it is.
cities? But that was good.
Actually, it is. It is in. It's where FCD plays.
Frisco.
Yeah. And that's decent.
Yeah.
And considering they don't show up for FCD games, good to hear. But that Orlando is actually a laggard there, which is interesting because they've had hitter players in NWSL in that city, and I guess they're a little bit behind.
LaRue, Morgan.
Ticket sales go in.
Marta, who's not American, but
dug around a little bit on this myself and saw that like it doesn't sound like they did. Thank you. As great on the marketing front as one would have liked to see.
Shocker.
Yeah, not at all. Surprise. I know ticket pricing has always been a thing. I don't know if the She Believes has as much push on it as like the Victory Tour kind of games do. I don't know if you know anything about this, so not to sandbag you on this question, but
not specifically, but I would say that again, the philosophy of U.S. soccer, and not to get into an economics class because I'm not qualified to have that discussion, but the general premise is, and Sunil Gulati, the former president, talked about this about 5 years ago. All things being equal, if they could sell 40,000 tickets for $20 versus 20,000 tickets for $40,000 or $40, sorry, they would do the 40,000 for $20, obviously. But the problem is they don't think that they would get that number by dropping the tickets in half, and so they want to make
it just seems
the number viable and not devalue the value of the product. So
understood.
I just look at that. That's a standard economic
Totally.
principle and it's legit.
But that's also like, okay, but to get people to spend more money, you have to spend a different amount of money to market to people who maybe are a little more affluent or whatever. And again, I've been to Orlando. I have friends who've worked in, theme parks and whatnot. They do not make a lot of money. And that is a massive portion of the population in any like tourism place. So especially like leave the US.
They probably have other things they like to do. They can be a Disney World.
You do different things, It's like it's just a different place. And you need to convince people, instead of like buying a 6-pack and driving out to, the coast to watch whatever the latest rocket launch is from Cape Canaveral, which is a thing you do, to spend your $20 instead of gas money to spend them to go to a game. Like, they're going to look at that and go, well, I'd spend $20 including my gas money to go take that evening, versus spend $40 plus the $40 you're going to spend in the park, to go to a match. It just seems to be a consistent challenge or problem. And I guess it is weird because, I mean, they can do better at Red Bull Arena for this than they can for Red Bulls sometimes. I mean, good, I guess, when you really, really think about it. But as sporting events go, going to see the U.S. women versus Brazil on the last victory tour, not the most recent, but prior, like Marta, like hitters on both sides playing in this match, it is the most expensive ticket I've purchased for anything in Seattle in the last 10 years. Like, it's not close. And that's not great.
Yeah. Well, I remember the Copa America, the tickets for Ecuador in the GA, what was the GA section, were 125, I think, or 105 or something like that.
Something in that vicinity.
Yeah.
And Nicholas is in here, so he may have an answer to that. But that's a challenge, ultimately.
They have just not... I mean, part of it has to do with the waning popularity of the men's national team, which has kind of infected everything. Even, just the enthusiasm, not the women specifically, but just enthusiasm around the national team product. And then the other part of it is, as you point out, is just their pricing structure has always seemed out of whack. And they haven't quite, again, the explanation I provided, while, again, economically legitimate, is not something that the fan base is going to accept as a reason. They would say, okay, fine, you're not going to get the 40,000 at 20 versus the 20,000 at 40. Okay, fine. Still dropping the 20 so you can get more people invested in the game. And the Federation has not seen fit to follow that philosophy as of yet. And I don't see that there's any indication that they're going to anytime in the future.
So normal for them. I guess like there's the flip of this where they're looking at it as, wow, our golden goose, or whatever the phrase you want to use, for the last 20, 30, 40 years is waning as far as popularity goes, and frankly efficacy and just interestingness. That's a challenge. Yeah,
the men were the cash cow up until about 2016, and now the women have basically carried the banner ever since then. And the men have, but the problem is that the men have gone so far downhill that it's affected everything. So the women are pulling their weight, which is great. In fact, probably doing a little bit more than that now. But they've just lost out on so much money because, again, the men didn't qualify for the World Cup. And it's just had an impact on their bottom line. Because keep in mind, for the Copa America, they brought in $170 million of profit from that event, which is an insane amount of money. And it's just, you just, not that you were going to replace that, but even with the World Cup, I don't know if they would have made that much. If the men had made the World Cup, you get prizes for getting on group stages and for appearing and all that kind of stuff. But I doubt they would have gotten $170 million, unless they had won the thing, which obviously wasn't going to happen. And so it's a lot of money to be out on. So I think they've had to kind of readjust how they do things. And the other thing is that I've talked to U.S. Soccer about this, and they've tried, in their pushed to try to PR their way out of the women's national team lawsuit, but they complain about how much they have to pay both the men and the women. They think the contracts for both are way too high, and they've sent me some information on how much they pay the men and the women versus other federations around the world, and teams like England don't take any money from their national team for playing, or they take it and they it's donated to various charitable organizations, and so that is a complaint that they have, and I don't know if it's a legitimate complaint. I'm not sure I care.
I mean, let's be clear.
But
the English players that are on Team England
are making a factor of 5
their
to 10.
entire year's national team salary in a week.
Yep.
Like, if you ever pay attention to that, like, we don't do that in this country, like when we talk about player salaries. Like, if you listen to English, like, sports talk radio, they're like, oh, so-and-so is on a $300,000 a week contract. And I'm like, my brain does quick math, and you're like, oh, my God. Like, to think about that. And that's your, like, starting midfielder at Crystal Palace. Okay. That's one of those, like, I'm going to go find other people's statistics and then play with it a little bit. Like, ultimately, if you're an English player or a Mexican player or whatever, you basically don't pay for anything if you leave your house. Like, the level of stature in society is just different. Now, maybe that's the case with Clint Dempsey or Michael Bradley or some of the women's players now.
But your MLS player getting his first cap
is not getting the hookup at the club every night, whereas that is the case with literally everyone on the Team England. Men or women, ultimately.
For an example, the English men's national team for international friendlies get $940 for their appearance fee for a game. That is
cool.
That is cab. That's an Uber ride around England, I guess, essentially. Whereas the men's national team for the U.S. appearance fee of $5,000. So you could, that's a lot. That's a drastic difference when you're paying 20, 25 players.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah,
it's not a good look.
And I would point out that the men are currently working without a CBA, so they're working under the old deal. So that's another thing. So to keep a lookout in the future, because they've been working without a CBA for I think 2 years now. So you got the women's lawsuit, and you may see the men going to court here sooner rather than later.
I don't really feel bad for the men's players. I'm sorry. Like, figure that out, and then maybe we can talk. But until there's a little bit more balance, ultimately, because honestly, like, I don't know if I've ever seen forget the salary or financial disparity, the level of attention that I have seen for the women's national team versus the men's national team in my entire life of paying attention to this, it is dramatic. And I know we live in an outlier city here in Seattle, but even when I talk to friends who live in the Midwest or wherever, their attention span for the women's national team is so much higher than I can ever remember in my life. And part of that's soccer's actually big in the United States, and it wasn't, 20 plus years ago for non-soccer heads. Right, but they win stuff. They're actually interesting, like, it's been a while since you've had your Alexi Lalas, like, who's literally in the newspaper every day, when, like, locally, regionally, nationally. Is Michael Bradley that interesting? No. And that's not just to hate on Toronto FC. Like, he just has a different level of dynamism that doesn't exist.
There is not any player on the national team, the men's national team, let me clarify that. The men's national team that moves the needle in any appreciable way. And even Pulisic, who is by far the best player, is never played in the United States and doesn't play and will not play in the United States for any time in the foreseeable future. So he's so far removed, he essentially has no Q rating. Is that the right
Q score
parlance? Q score. Yeah, and so they have nobody right now who is quote unquote interesting to the
Well, you see every day.
sports public, the soccer public, or the general public.
Yeah,
Unless you're regularly watching FX2 on Sunday.
that's a good point. I would say there are, again, like Jordan or like Ariola. Like we don't see Ariola every day because he's in DC. Like I don't know what their level of interest in talking to the press, on a regular basis, or like being out there taking on political issues or whatever the heck it is. Like Megan Rapinoe was Megan Rapinoe before the last X months that we all knew about. She and Sue Bird and like all sorts of other things, and she's been beloved in this city well before any of that.
Yeah.
But on the national scale, like people know who she is. Like non-soccer fan friends of mine,
Yep.
like know who Megan Rapinoe is.
Yep.
I can't say they know who Jordan Morris is.
No.
And that's
Again, no one on the national team moves the needle in that way.
But they knew who Clint Dempsey was.
Well, no, I'm
And
not
if
saying
that
it
just
never
was-
happened.
and
I'm
by the
saying
way,
it's
Clint Dempsey
not that
isn't
way now.
a media-focused person. Like,
No.
yes, he has a Nike-produced rap video that we watched last night at my house, and it was really funny. I don't know what's happening outside right now. Some sort of chanting.
Yeah.
It actually might be, for all we know. Frat initiation. Outside.
Yes.
Let's
Yes.
not have any shootings
Yes,
outside.
please.
So we're running a little hot on the show right now. Sounders, Columbus. What time is it? 7?
I will not be
7
there
Saturday night.
So you guys will have to have fun without me.
Columbus.
Pretty good this year.
Yeah.
Pretty good this year.
Won at home, right? This
Yep.
weekend.
NYCFC.
Are honestly habitually a problem for Sounders.
Yes.
It's either like someone wins really, really late, or it's just a super annoying game the
Yeah.
entire time. Don't really know what to expect, given that there may be some Sounders lineup changes that happen between now and the weekend.
Yeah, the Sounders are training every day. Not today. Every day going forward. So we'll get some more information. Unfortunately, not in time for our show, but hopefully, again, Gustav is supposed to be in training in full on tomorrow, and we'll see about Nico if he's even close.
So Hat Week.
Hat week. I apologize for not wearing one.
Nicholas wants to know any preview on what kind of hat I'll be wearing. No. I may need to go to the store and purchase one because I think all of my hats look somewhat like this one. Wow. Spare orca hat. I may need to find something just altogether different and random that. Wow. Yeah. This is going to go downhill really, really fast. So it's Hat Week. If you don't remember this, Columbus fans at some point thought that we were a rival when we were going there, and I think they called it Hate Week. Yeah. And we were like, wait, no one cares about you, so everyone just wore hats.
I think someone misspelled it in a
Probably.
post
Yeah,
of
there
some
was
sort.
something.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we made hats when they came here with the old Columbus Crew crest. But instead of like Columbus Crew, whatever, it said genocide sucks as a good Christopher Columbus dig.
That's pretty
And
good.
we sold all of these hats outside a bar like that morning.
Are these like the
like in
MLS
cash.
World Cup champion hats?
It was like that, right? But like outside of Fuel, we're just like selling hats, and they were just like random trucker hats that said "Genocide sucks," which was amazing.
That's fantastic.
So shouts to designers because that shit was really funny. But honestly, like I expect this to be a tough match.
So,
and
but yeah,
considering,
absolutely.
not to segue too hard, but considering what we saw against Chicago, who again had mishmashed a new team together pretty quickly, in the offseason. Sounders were not world beaters, for a good chunk of the game.
Yeah.
They're gonna need to shape up a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah.
to play against a team that is expected to be pretty solid.
Yeah, and you've got Zardes and Adi up front who are big-bodied forward
Players we hate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just big.
It is Portland too.
Yeah, that's true. But their big-bodied forwards are probably going to give Arriaga and Ymar all they can handle, just from a physical standpoint, because they can certainly match up to him. But I think the Sounders have like you said, they've been tough games historically, but the Sounders have done okay against them. Won in at the end of the game last year into Columbus. Have a decent record against them, but Columbus has won a few games here, so it screams draw to me, just because. Yeah, it's just like one of those games.
You're
where,
saying Sounders are not just going to win out?
No, sorry. It's
That's not your expectation?
No.
Is that your professional opinion?
Yeah, I'm a professional. Just kind of based on, again, the Sounders are not going to be 100%. By all accounts, Columbus should be, and so that kind of takes a little bit. If the Sounders had their best lineup, I'd pick them at home, but it's going to be a tough game. I think the Sounders can certainly win the game if they can clean up what they do in the second half, what they do in the first half, what they did in the second half, and kind of put a complete game together. They have more than enough. Again, Columbus beat NYC 1-0 at home with a man up for 97 minutes of the game. So it's not like they were off to a flying start themselves.
Yeah. So let's make a quick prediction, and then we have one or two other things to discuss before we hop out.
Okay.
What's your take? You're saying draw for sure?
I'm going to say I'm feeling 2-2.
I'm going to say 2-1, but only if the Sounders go in the correct direction. That's my caveat on that. You probably can bet on that. I'm not going to try. Nicholas wants a haircut, and JJ says 3-2 win. So we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Hope has asked about the media match, and I just want to start off. I'm going to ask, how many sitters did you miss, and was it more or less than Miguel Ibarra? I'm sorry. Have I ever held back?
Yes.
Alex Roldan is going to find me on the streets and just go knock me like out of nowhere one day. It's going to be bad. And I'm going to deserve it.
This is actually going to be all of our
Yeah.
I did have one shot I hit off the post.
I heard this on the Twitter.
It was very unfortunate. I got a great pass right about the top of the penalty box. Dribbled, toe poked it right past the keeper, just right down the line, and then right off the post. In
Who was the keeper?
The opposite. I don't remember who the keeper was.
What the hell?
There were 60 people playing. Lucky I remember my own name.
That's fair. Nice. If you have a tequila shot after this show, you may not remember your own name.
But it was a a fun event. They do a good job putting it on. I survived. Yes, it was good. I only played about 30 minutes, I would say, of the entire.
I mean,
of the
considering you
entire
had a zillion people, that's a good amount of time.
It's
like
one of
we
those-
have 18 on our rec league, and if I don't play 40 minutes, I'm pissy. So
Well, it's a full field and 90 minutes, and the halftime is like 4 minutes. So, and also we're not professional soccer players, which may be the most key part of that equation. So it's not you're doing hockey shifts, and you're basically everyone's playing like 5 to 10, 15 minutes, and then you're like shifting in like 6 or 7 people. So everyone got as much
line
time
changes.
as they wanted. Yeah, it's line changes, 100%.
that's exhausting, but it's very pub league.
Yes,
so
it is.
go with that.
Yeah. So fun event.
Will Gold Elevator win at all?
They
this
must have something planned for that, but I'm going to say at this point no until we find out like something that is going on, like some marketing thing, because it's got to be tied to some type of.
Thanks, Verizon.
Yes, exactly.
Nicholas says if Gold Elevator didn't win this week, it's not winning this year unless coronavirus causes a closed door match, and they'll win then.
If we've got those kind of issues going on, we've got more.
I mean, I did say Chicago Fire recap, inappropriate coronavirus jokes, and preview Saturday's match versus Columbus. So we nailed it for
you got
tonight,
everything. Yeah,
right?
Yes.
Serious question: do you, in your you're not a I am not a doctor.
Yes.
It's very Reddit of us. Do you expect there to be event closures in the state of Washington in the near term? Because Jay Inslee is leaning in that direction.
I would say more likely yes than no at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say like.
A lot of meetings, governments.
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
55-45 at this point, and
It's
definitely
kinda nuts.
it's going in the yes direction as opposed to no.
Yeah. Like Serie A is canceling or closed dooring
Yeah.
matches.
Yeah, they
and, like,
postponed
big
pretty much everything
matches.
this weekend.
Inter Juventus. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, which is crazy. Yeah, it's not great. And when places that are, frankly, have far less people living in their countries are like, nope, we're not doing this. I mean, GDC just got canceled, Mobile World Congress, and then today Facebook announced they're not doing anything at South by Southwest, which is this week, next week, coming up soon
They only
in
have
Austin.
3. They've got about 2 months before they have to decide on the Olympics.
The Olympics, yeah. So kind of nuts. John points out his wife's working from home for the next couple of weeks. I did read this, that King County bought a motel
Yeah.
to quarantine folks. Cool. I can't say already that I remember anything with this level of like day to day except Tylenol in like the 80s. No, but seriously, like that's the last thing I remember, that there was this much like doctors on TV talking about things.
Yeah.
Yes, but even then it was like still regional. Like it got as much coverage, but like from a health perspective nationally, I don't know. I went to the airport. I took a flight on Saturday, and I used to fly 100 days a year for business, and you might see 2 people at the airport a day with a mask. Always. Like that's always been
Yeah,
the case
there's always
forever.
a couple, yeah.
For 20 years I've been traveling for business. I probably saw 10x that easy, and on both flights that I took, there were 2 or 3 people. That's like a dramatic change for a domestic flight. So yeah, I would even say, and Nicholas mentions SARS in Toronto. This to me blows
that away.
SARS.
Were
But
there
even
any
that, like this
fatal-
blows that away.
Were there? No.
Oh yeah, it's a completely different level of. But even from a level of attention and like a what you should do, this is far beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a good tweet today, and I'm sorry I don't remember who it was. Somebody had said, if this gets guys to wash their hands when they leave the bathroom,
It's we got
and
it's
like
a win.
everybody
Yes.
survives and it's all okay, but it makes people wash their hands, then we should consider that a victory. And I'm here for that comment. So yeah, kind of nuts, but I am hopeful that we don't see it. I do know a couple of people that didn't go to the match Saturday for this.
I heard, just a couple of anecdotal examples of that happening.
so kind of crazy.
Yeah,
But
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We will
I'd
see.
say we'll know in the next. Yeah, yeah.
there were masks in the section.
Some people are closely related to, like, Sean had a coworker, like, there's people we know that we were all. So basically, we all have it by now.
Yay. So wash your hands,
Yep.
carry your Purell. Yeah. Don't touch anyone
Yeah.
ever.
Oh, there goes
I
my
did-
social life.
There was a lot of There was a lot of fist bumping, and then I had seen things on Twitter, which I think the feet thing. Yeah. It was funny because there was like a group doing it's like touch one foot, then the other, then the other, then the other, which is actually a really popular TikTok meme for like one of the dances that people do. And I definitely did that a number of times with people outside of Fuel yesterday. So I may just go to that from now on. Yeah, I don't know. Wakanda Forever, that
Ooh,
works.
that was
There was also
solid.
Live Long and Prosper has come up as a good suggestion. Yeah, interesting. So I'm curious to see where this goes because it feels like it's escalating quickly in Washington State.
Yeah, I mean, the Sounders are having his meetings with everyone as much as anybody else. But it's probably something to follow up with them on, just generally what their plan of action is.
Don't go to a
going forward.
Trump rally.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just in general, don't do that. But
Dang it, I have to cancel my plan.
Yeah.
let's be clear, no one is washing their hands at the Trump rally. Like, I'm just going to say that, and that's kind of the end of it. I'm actually going to just drink Corona from now on. Like, I'm not really even drinking beer, just because.
Yeah.
If there was Corona at the Berliner pub, aside from the fact that I would feel bad for the Berliner pub, I would definitely have one. They will love that. So I will leave your name out of this right now. So when you roll up with like a bucket, we won't tell anyone who did it. So any other random predictions, comments, thoughts, opinions, hate mail?
No, I won't be there for the game on Saturday, so you guys will have to enjoy it without me.
What the hell? Are you going to be here next week for the show?
Yeah. I'm doing a day trip or an evening trip overnight to Wenatchee.
Sounds like a good idea.
It is.
Off camera, daddy-daughter dance is happening.
Yes.
If there's not an obscenely long Insta story for this, I'm going to be really disappointed. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a thing on the internet today about, like, you can't take pictures of other people's kids and post them on the internet. Why is this surprising to people?
Is there a risk of that?
Yeah, I don't know. So it is a thing. It's actually why if you ever walk by like preschools or daycares that have windows, they have signs, like fixed signs that are like, don't take pictures of the kids. Why do we need that? Anywho, so you're heading over. So
yeah,
that's
heading
fun.
over. I will not be able to watch the game.
So
I'll be catching up on the replay.
So we'll be here next Monday to recap a little bit of Columbus and whatever else is going on.
Yeah. Yes.
And the daddy-daughter dance. And we probably will talk about this Super Tuesday thing that happens tomorrow, if anyone's not paid attention to it. Vote. I think my sticker's here. If you haven't voted yet and you are in Washington State, you need to do that
If you haven't gotten
now.
your ballot or if you need to update, do that now.
Yeah.
Today's the last day unless you want to go in person.
You have 2 hours and 40 minutes. Hope points out you can go to the library if you need help. So make it happen. Well, you can't go to the library tonight because it's closed, unfortunately. But yeah.
Yeah, do that. Do your civic duty.
I'm not going to even repeat that. So anyway, good time, Mickey. Thanks for being here. Thanks for Berliner. Thanks for
Pleasure
Berliner
as
for having
always.
us. Thanks to y'all for politely heckling us for the most part. Thanks to everybody
The
for
most
watching
part.
at home.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week.